In 1990-something, Copenhagen Airport did something no airport had done before. It rebuilt its terminal so that you could not reach any gate without walking through the duty-free shop. Not past it, through it. Retail revenue jumped by about 20%. Every major airport on Earth copied it. Heathrow, Dubai, Schiphol, Incheon. There's an industry term for the layout, and once you know it, you'll see it every time you fly. It's called commercial walkthrough. Here's the part that reframes the whole building. That airport is not trying to move you to your gate efficiently. It's trying to move you past security efficiently and then keep you standing still for as long as possible. Those are opposite goals, and the second one is where the money is. So the question isn't why airports are annoying. It's narrower than that, and stranger. Why is the slow part of your journey placed exactly where it is? Follow the money first because it explains everything downstream. An airport has two kinds of income. Aeronautical revenue is the obvious one. Landing fees, aircraft parking, the charges an airline pays to use the runway. Non-aeronautical is everything else. Shops, restaurants, car parks, advertising, property rent. Globally, that second category is about 37% of total airport revenue, according to Airports Council International, the industry's own trade body. In the United States, it's higher. The most recent benchmarking survey puts non-aeronautical revenue at roughly 46% of total American airport revenue. Sit with that second number. Close to half the income of an American airport has nothing to do with airplanes. And the composition of that money is not what most people assume. In North America, the single largest slice of non-aeronautical revenue isn't duty-free or restaurants at all. It's car parking, at roughly 43% of the total. Globally, the mix is more even, with retail concessions and parking each running somewhere in the low to mid-20s, and food and beverage a surprisingly small 6% or so. That parking figure matters because it means the commercial machine starts working on you before you've even entered the building, and it keeps working on whoever drove you there. But airside is where the density is. Airport retail generates over $1,000 per square foot of floor space. A regional shopping mall manages roughly 470. Take the identical shop, move it past a security checkpoint, and its productivity more than doubles, which raises the obvious question: why? The products aren't better. The prices are worse. Because of the one thing an airport has that a shopping mall never will: you cannot leave. Not in a sinister sense. You're through security, you have a boarding time, and you have somewhere between 20 minutes and 2 hours with nothing to do and nowhere else to be. A mall competes for your attention against your entire life. An airport competes against a plastic chair. The industry has a name for that window, and it is measured, tracked, modeled, and reported to shareholders. It's called dwell time. Not a metaphor, a metric. Airports break the terminal into zones and measure how long you stay in each one, because a passenger who spends 50 minutes at the gate hold is worth almost nothing commercially. And a passenger who spends 30 of those minutes in the retail concourse is worth a great deal. Same total time. Completely different revenue. At Schiphol, one report put average passenger dwell time at 146 minutes. In the late 1990s, the average was closer to 50. Dwell time roughly tripled. Nobody's flight got harder to catch. So now the incentive is visible, and one thing that always confused me finally makes sense. Why does an airport want security to be fast? The obvious answer is customer service. The real answer is arithmetic, and it's brutal. Research cited across the airport industry finds that for every 10 minutes a passenger spends stuck in a processing queue, security, immigration, check-in, their subsequent commercial spending drops by around 30%. Read that again. Not their satisfaction, their spending. A queue doesn't just annoy you. It converts profitable minutes into worthless ones, and it does damage that persists after you've cleared the line. Stressed passengers buy less. J.D. Power found passengers delighted with their airport experience spend about $44 in the terminal. Disappointed ones spend $29. So the incentive is not to get you through security quickly because your time matters. It's to get you through quickly because your time is inventory. And every minute of it spent in a queue is a minute that cannot be sold to anybody. Airside time is the product, security is the loading dock. And there's a measured example of what happens when that window shrinks. Across the Asia-Pacific region, free airside time recently fell from about 60 minutes to 44, a 26% decline in 6 years. Passenger numbers rose over 12% in a single year. Travel retail revenue still contracted by 2%, and spend per passenger fell from about $24 to $15.50. More people, less money, because the minutes disappeared. Which brings us back to Copenhagen and to why the floor plan looks the way it does. If dwell time is the asset, the building's job is to route you through the places where dwell converts into spending and to keep you out of the places where it doesn't. That's the commercial walkthrough. There's no barrier and no requirement to stop, and you are entirely free to walk straight through without buying anything. The path simply makes direct passage feel slightly unnatural, curving where you expect it to straighten, with product islands parked in the middle of the walkway so that you have to deviate around them. The sensory environment shifts at the same moment, and once you've noticed it, you can't stop noticing it. The lighting warms as you leave the security hall, moving away from the hard fluorescent glare of the checkpoint toward something softer. The aisles are wider than a high street shop because crowding triggers avoidance, and avoidance means walking faster. And the music tends to be slow, in the range that correlates with reduced walking speed, which is why the tempo near the gates when boarding is imminent feels noticeably different from the tempo in the shop you passed 10 minutes earlier. There's a subtler version of the same logic in something you've definitely stood underneath: the departure boards. Where an airport places its information screens changes where people wait. Too few screens near the shops, and passengers drift anxiously toward their gate to watch the one they can see. Too many, and they never leave the retail area at all because they can check from where they stand. Some airports hold gate announcements back, so passengers stay in the central concourse longer. And to be fair, that last one has a genuinely mundane explanation alongside the commercial one. Gates change. Aircraft arrive late. Operations teams want flexibility, and announcing a gate early removes it. Both things are true at once, which is a pattern you'll notice repeatedly in this building. Now, the sandwich. Everyone's theory about the $14 airport sandwich is that you're trapped, so they gouge you. That's not quite it, and the real reason is more interesting. Airport tenants don't pay ordinary rent. They pay a percentage of gross sales. According to the most recent North American benchmarking survey, the median rate is 12.8% of gross sales for food and beverage, and 16.5% for duty-free, news gift, and specialty retail. So the shop isn't renting a room. It's renting a position in your path and paying the landlord a cut of everything that crosses the counter. Add higher wages, security clearance for every employee, restricted delivery windows, and that cut comes off the top before anyone's made a profit. The sandwich costs $14 because the airport is a shareholder in the sandwich. Now, I've spent several minutes building a case, and I want to test it, because two of the most popular claims in this genre don't survive contact with the evidence. The first is the carpet. You've heard it. Airports carpet the terminal to slow you down casino style, so you shop more. It's repeated constantly, and it's wrong. And the layout itself proves it. Look at where the carpet really is. It's in the gate areas. The hard floors, tile, and terrazzo are in the circulation routes and the retail concourse. If carpet were a device for slowing you down near shops, it would be under the shops. It isn't. It's under the seats, in the zone where you generate the least revenue of anywhere in the building. Carpet is there for acoustics, comfort, and durability. Muffling the noise of thousands of rolling suitcases in a hall with a hard ceiling is a real engineering problem, and soft flooring solves it. The second claim is the seating, and this one I expected to confirm and couldn't. The story goes that airport seats are deliberately made uncomfortable to drive you into the restaurants. The honest answer is that the evidence points somewhere much more boring. Research presented to the Transportation Research Board describes those rigid tandem bench rows as a product of maximizing seat count in space-constrained gate areas. A throughput and cost decision from an era when passenger volumes overwhelmed terminals. There is one genuine academic finding nearby. The environmental psychologist Robert Sommer studied airport seating and concluded the bolted rigid rows were sociofugal, arranged to discourage social interaction, which does push people toward cafes and shops. That's real, but it's about interaction, not lumbar support. And here's the detail that breaks the myth outright. Where airports do want you to linger, they install better seating, not worse. Comfortable furniture is used deliberately to raise dwell in retail-heavy central areas. Comfort isn't withheld. It's deployed strategically. One more honest complication. The academic literature on dwell time and spending is mixed. Several studies find a positive relationship between longer dwell and higher retail and food spending. Others don't. A well-known analysis by Appold and Casarda found only a weak relationship. The industry treats dwell as the master metric. The research is less certain than the industry is. So what survives all that? A great deal, and it's the load-bearing part. Non-aeronautical revenue is around 37% globally and roughly 46% in the United States. That's published by the industry itself. Dwell time is a formally measured metric with zones and monetary values attached. Queue minutes measurably destroy downstream spending. Rents are a percentage of sales. And the walk-through layout was invented on purpose, copied deliberately, and named. What doesn't survive is the conspiracy version. Nobody is punishing you with a hard chair or hypnotizing you with a rug. The truth is more ordinary, and I think more interesting. Nobody designed a building to trap you. They designed a building that earns almost half its money from a captive audience with time to kill, and then made every subsequent decision rationally from that starting point. The layout isn't hostile, it's just honest about what it's for. Which is why the walk through duty-free feels the way it does. You think you're being routed to your gate. You're being routed past an opportunity on your way to the gate. The flight is what you bought. The 40 minutes before it is what paid for the building you're standing in. So when you land somewhere new and walk out through arrivals in 90 seconds flat, past nothing, with no shops in the way, notice that. The building didn't get simpler. You just stopped being worth anything.